Hi, guys. Oh, man. It's a great day. It's a great day. Great day to be me. Great day to be a Steelers fan. I'm so happy. I'm so happy. The Pittsburgh Steelers have traded quarterback Kenny Pickett to the Philadelphia Eagles. It is a pick swap, and Adam Schefter posted the official compensation for it. Let me just find that real quick. So the compensation is a pick swap. The Steelers get pick number 120. No, pick number 98 and 2 7th-round picks in 2025. The Eagles get pick number 120 and Kenny Pickett this year. You know what? I'm not going to be the bigger person here. I'm going to be, and I have been on Twitter. I'm going to be extremely petty about all of this. Because for the past 2 years, I've had to listen to these Kenny Pickett fanboys defend a horrible quarterback and tell me how great he is and act like he's their messiah for 2 fucking years. And now he's gone. And you know why he's gone? Because back in January, when Derek Bell and Steelers Now reported that he refused to be the backup for Mason Rudolph, that is now confirmed to be true by Jerry Dulac of Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. He refused to be the backup in Seattle, and then the Pittsburgh Steelers signed Russell Wilson, and they reportedly didn't like how he was acting about that, so they traded his ass to the Eagles. And I am so happy about it. So now, the Pittsburgh Steelers only have the one quarterback on the roster. That's Russell Wilson. So now I'm thinking they might trade for Russell or for Justin Fields. Because there isn't a market right now for Fields. The Steelers are probably it. Maybe the New York Giants. So if you're Pittsburgh, hey, you call up the Chicago Bears and be like, hey, we'll take Justin Fields. We'll give you a day 3 pick. What do you say? Because there's no market for him right now. Everybody thought that, this would be a guy that could go for maybe a 2nd or 3rd round pick. It's very clear that nobody has valued him as that. Steelers need a quarterback to back up Russ, or maybe even have, a de facto quarterback competition. Why not go get him? And if Russ doesn't play well this year, maybe you pick up the 5th-year option for Justin Fields and have that in your back pocket next year, so you at least have a quarterback on the roster next year. They're also definitely going to draft a guy, whether that be, in the 2nd round, 3rd round, 4th round, I don't know. It depends on how the board falls. They have much bigger needs right now than worrying about, taking a guy, if it's a 2nd round and Michael Penix is still there. It depends on what they do in the 1st round. If they have a center, if they have a tackle, it just depends on how the board falls, how they value some of these guys. But if they were to take someone like a Spencer Rattler on day 2, okay, there's one of your quarterbacks on the roster. They take a guy like a Michael Pratt from Tulane, okay, there's another quarterback on the roster. But that is my immediate thoughts in terms of what happens next for the quarterback position. But overall, as I've said, I've had to sit for 2 years covering this team, being a fan of this team, and having to see all of these Kenny Pickett fanboys in my mentions, whether it be on here, whether it be on Twitter, telling me how great this guy is and it's all Matt Canada's fault. And 4th quarter Kenny, guess what? He's gone. Good riddance. And as the great people over at Steelers Now reported in January, Mason Rudolph was the starter in Seattle. Kenny Pickett refused to dress. That has now been confirmed by Jerry Dulac of the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. And it is also reported that the Steelers didn't like how Kenny Pickett responded to Russell Wilson being signed. And so they sent him to the Philadelphia Eagles. And now he's gone. So there's a few comments here. Steel City Reaper, yes, he's gone. Yes, he is. Does this take the cult with him? Yeah, by the way, enjoy that, Philadelphia Eagles fans, because the second Jalen Hurts throws an interception or doesn't have a great game, you're going to hear from him. You're going to hear from him. You're going to hear from that Pickett hive. I'll put in Kenny. Put him in. Misunderstood. Well, he's 14-10 as a starter. Put him in. Yeah, good luck with that, Philadelphia. My buddy Greg Cherry, Pickett fanboys are in shambles. Yes, they are. Yes, they are. But you won't hear from them. No. I haven't heard from any of them today, oddly enough. Now they're hiding. Now they're going to be quiet. They were very much alive when Kenny Pickett was throwing for $120 against the Browns and getting his ass beat, telling me that it wasn't his fault, that it was Matt Canada's fault. They were very much alive when he was playing horrible football for 3 quarters per game and occasionally having a nice fourth quarter, telling me he's the greatest thing since sliced bread. They were pretty vocal then. They ain't vocal right now, are they? I'm so happy. I could not be happier right now. And look, man, I would say it's not against Kenny Pickett as a person, but all these reports coming out that now he's just being a prima donna, to hell with him. Good riddance. The worst starting quarterback in this franchise's history. When you take into account all the expectations that came with it, like we could talk about guys like Kent Graham was bad and Bubby Brister and guys of that like. Nobody expected them to be superstars. Steelers took this guy in the first round, 20th overall, because he went to the same university that the city or that the team is in and shared a facility with the team. They drafted the story of the player. I'll go to my grave thinking that. You're never going to tell me otherwise. And now he's gone. And you know what? Omar Khan, credit to you, man. Because that general manager has done more in the past calendar year or so, past 2 years, than Kevin Colbert did in the past decade. There's a new era for Pittsburgh. I don't know what this year's going to look like under Russ. I don't know how he's going to look, but I'll tell you right now, I am so happy Kenny Pickett's off this team. So happy. Steel City Reaper, they're deleting tweets. I'm sure they are because they knew I'd be coming. As soon as they saw that, they said, shit, Jarrett Bailey's going to have a field day with this. And they're goddamn right I am. Goddamn right I am. I'm having the greatest day I've had in I don't know how long. G-Man 522, Omar really trying to win us the Super Bowl. You know what, man? Hey, I don't know what Russ is going to look like, but I admire the just pure balls to be like, all right, Kenny, you're gone. I admire that a lot. And the fact that it came like a couple hours after Russell Wilson's press conference. And by the way, the guys coming in know that they wanted Russ to start. Russ talked about it in his introductory press conference. Cam Hayward and him FaceTime for an hour ahead of his decision. TJ Watt and Minka were both apparently instrumental in wanting Russ to come here. They knew that Kenny wasn't the guy. They knew he wasn't good. Guys like Pat Freiermuth, they know he's not good. They didn't want him there. And now he's gone. And that's the best thing for the team. And now they can focus on getting the 2 other quarterbacks on the roster, whomever they may be. One of them, I assume, will be a draft pick. One of them might be Josh Dobbs. I think that would be okay. I think that makes sense. A guy who's, been in Pittsburgh before, would be a really respectable backup. Yeah, I'd be okay with Josh Dobbs. I saw somebody tweet that earlier. That's good. Yeah, Josh Dobbs. I'm in for it. David saying, yeah, buddy. Hey, man, I am live today. I was working on a piece for USA Today. It's about Justin Herbert, by the way. Read that when it comes out, please. I was working on the piece, and I got the Schefter alert, and I saw Kenny Pickett, and I was like, no. And I pulled it up. Man, it was a great day. It's a great day to be me. And the better thing about it is that I never have to write another thing, like a really in-depth thing about Kenny Pickett again. That makes me pretty happy. I'm very happy about that. And again, I don't got to listen to all these fanboys in my mentions. Don't worry. I kept receipts and I've been going through just making sure that they know I see them. Some of them have mysteriously disappeared. Wonder why that's the case. Because they knew I was coming. They knew I was waiting for this day. I didn't think it would come this soon. I thought it would come next offseason. Or like at the trade deadline. Man, oh man. Now Eagles fans. I just got to deal with it. Can't wait for preseason in Philadelphia, man. That's going to be exciting. Jalen Hurts, if he looks bad on like 2 drives that he has in like the second preseason game, all of a sudden you're going to see that Kenny Pickett have come alive. Did you see that nice 3-yard dig? Put him in, Sirianni. I can't wait. I cannot wait. Because you know what? Not my problem anymore. Not my problem. I don't got to deal with all these morons that think Kenny Pickett's going to be Dan Marino. I'm so happy. Dude, I don't know what they're going to do for the rest of the offseason. Don't care. Don't care. I am as happy as can be. I'm going to order some food later tonight. Might be a little bit of Papa John's. Maybe I'll just go simple and get some Chick-fil-A. I don't know what it's going to be. But, bruv, nothing is going to take this good mood away from me. I am so happy. Oh, by the way, hey, if you're and Steelers fans, they need a receiver. The Cowboys just released Michael Gallup. I think that's a fine receiver option to be the second or third receiver. More likely the third receiver. I think they're going to draft a receiver early because they need a guy to put at the X. Because I think they're still going to keep George Pickens as like the Y guy, be the deep threat, win contested catches, but they still need a guy who can naturally separate. And maybe, hey, Pickens got better at that last year. Not trying to take anything away from George Pickens there, but if there's a way that they can get somebody who can get some natural separation early on in the draft, then cool. And then if they want to bring in a guy like a Michael Gallup or a KJ Osborne or a Tyler Boyd, that's been a name that's been tied to them. He's a Pittsburgh native, so there might be something there. But Michael Gallup's an option at receiver for Russell Wilson, not Kenny Pickett to throw the ball to. I'm so happy. Now, this is a situation where I wish they would have brought back Mason Rudolph, because Rudolph just signed a deal with Tennessee for a year where he's likely going to be the backup to Will Levis. Now, for Tennessee, this regime, I'm pretty sure I don't think this general manager drafted Levis. I'd have to go back and look. But the point being, the head coach isn't tied to Will Levis. So if he doesn't show something early on after all the moves that they've made, maybe they just give the keys to Mason Rudolph for the rest of the year. Maybe that's how Rudolph saw it. And maybe he just wanted a fresh start, which is fine. It's understandable. But this is a case where I wish that Mason Rudolph was brought back in some capacity, just because, having him as a veteran guy who has been with this team for a long time would be nice. But regardless, they'll have two other quarterbacks on the roster at some point, whomever they may be. I think Josh Dobbs makes sense, former Steeler, a guy who was one of the darlings of the NFL last year, going from Cleveland to Arizona to Minnesota, and really playing well with Arizona. And then Kurt goes down, and then Minnesota just going to oh, crap, all right, well, we'll trade for Josh Dobbs. And then he plays really well. He came in against Atlanta, not knowing the offense, not knowing the cadences, and not having chemistry with any of the offensive linemen. And he played really well for a while. So that's a high-quality backup that they could add, and I think that there should be some mutual interest there. So if they roll with Russell Wilson and Josh Dobbs as 1-2 at quarterback, sign me up. I'm in. And after Russell Wilson's press conference today, the dude just seems really ready to be done with Denver, move on to this team. And again, Cam Hayward, Minkah Fitzpatrick, TJ Watt, Pat Freiermuth, all guys that were really instrumental in him coming there. They knew that they needed a new quarterback because Kenny Pickett wasn't the guy. And apparently Kenny Pickett didn't respond to that well, the same way he didn't respond well to Mason Rudolph starting in Seattle, which is why he refused to be the backup, which the great people at Steelers Now, Pittsburgh Sports Now, Derek Bell reported. And a lot of people gave him a lot of hell for it. And I'm glad to see DB taking his victory lap as well, because he earned it. Because all of those are now being confirmed by Jerry Dulac of the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette that Kenny Pickett refused to be the backup in Seattle for Mason Rudolph, and apparently did not reply well to the Steelers signing Russell Wilson, as if he had any right to do that, by the way. Kenny Pickett, let's talk about some stats. Kenny Pickett, the lowest touchdown percentage in NFL history of quarterbacks with at least 500 pass attempts. The only quarterback with a touchdown percentage lower than 2% of those guys. 500 quarterbacks. Yet he thinks he has the right to throw a little hissy fit when the Steelers sign a quarterback who's much better than him. A quarterback that threw more touchdowns last season, who threw double the touchdowns last season than Kenny Pickett has in 2 seasons. Kenny Pickett, 13 career touchdown passes. Russell Wilson last year, 26 touchdown passes. Kenny Pickett sucks. And he had the audacity to get angry at the Steelers for signing Russell Wilson and for starting Mason Rudolph after he put up 30 points and a massive passing display against the Cincinnati Bengals. And then Mason Rudolph just won the Steelers' final 3 games and helped them get into the playoffs. And also had a respectable performance against the Bills in the playoffs. Say what you want about Mason Rudolph. He's a hell of a lot better quarterback than Kenny Pickett is. And now the poor Philadelphia Eagles are going to have to deal with his apparently crybaby phase if he doesn't get treated a certain way. They're going to have to deal with, good luck, Eagles Twitter, dealing with the Kenny Pickett stands of the world. I don't envy you because I had to deal with it for 2 years. But now I don't. I'm pretty happy about it. I'm so happy, guys. I don't ever want to end this stream. I mean, we're only 15 minutes in. I'm going to still keep talking about the Steelers and what's next for them. But this is great. It's a great day to be me. I'm pretty happy about it. If you want to leave a comment, I'll put it on the screen. A lot of people have left comments so far. David back in here saying everything you're saying. So I appreciate that. I'd like to think I'm pretty okay at my job. So thank you for that. If you have any questions, you can also drop them in the comments and I'll take them. I'm doing a stream. I might as well take some questions about it. This is the best day ever. Michael, what happens to the KP8 fanboys? They go to Philadelphia with them, I guess. I don't know. Because here's the thing. A lot of them were Steelers fans that are also Pitt fans and wanted more than anything for Kenny Pickett to be the greatest thing to ever exist. And it didn't matter how much he showed you that he was bad. They were still going to defend him because he went to the college that they root for. So I'm sure some of them who, just happen to be fans of him at Pitt will still be a fan of him in Philadelphia. And like I said, the second Jalen Hurts has a bad game or has a bad throw, we're going to see put him in, Sirianni, put in Pickett, put in Kenny, put him in. There's going to be a lot of that. So good luck to Eagles Twitter. Enjoy that bomb. I can't wait. I cannot wait to see Eagles Twitter during like the preseason. If Jalen Hurts doesn't look good, or like week 3, if he throws a pick, I'm in. I'm going to be tied to it. Just as an outsider, knowing that it's not my problem anymore, going to be great. And look, I'm sure that some of them will still be vocal on Twitter for the next little bit, especially like the beginning of the year. If like Russell doesn't look good, I know a quarterback that would have won this game, going 17 of 32 for $190. Yeah, okay, I'm sure he would have. As he's 10 of 18 for 90 yards in the fourth quarter, I'm sure he would have. God almighty. I'm so glad I don't have to deal with that anymore. I'm so happy, guys. What should I order for food? If anybody has any suggestions, throw that in the comments. I'm going to stay here for a little bit. Again, ask all the questions you want. It doesn't even have to be Kenny Pickett related if you don't want it to be, by the way. Ask away. I'll answer whatever. If you're on YouTube, if you're on Twitter, however you want to ask them, I will answer them. Some of the Twitter ones might not show up depending on where you're watching. I don't know why that's the case. It's just a weird thing with StreamYard. But also, if you want to ask me a question or anything, you can just tweet at me and I will pull it up and we'll get it done. But regardless, I'm very happy. I could not be happier right now. Kenny Pickett's no longer a Steeler. He's no longer my problem. I don't got to cover him. I don't got to write about him. God forbid something happened to Jalen Hurts. I'm going to knock on wood here. I don't want that to happen. But God forbid something does. Eagles fans are going to find out real quick why a lot of Steelers fans with level heads were happy to see him go. All right, we got a couple questions. Who has a better chance of getting any starts this year, Mason or Kenny? I think it would be Mason Rudolph, just because Brian Callahan, the head coach of the Tennessee Titans, isn't really tied to Will Levis. He didn't draft him. He wasn't there when he was drafted. And if Will Levis doesn't play well, they can just kind of be like, okay, you know what? We're going to put in Mason Rudolph. We're going to try to get a quarterback in 2025. The only chance that Pickett sees the field is if Jalen Hurts gets injured. Keaton, what's up, buddy? Thoughts on Hollywood Brown going to KC? Yeah, I was hoping that Buffalo would make a move there. It would have just made natural sense for the Bills to have him as like an outside deep threat. So it makes perfect sense for the Chiefs to go get him. Now they have Rashee Rice, who's kind of their intermediate and underneath guy. And now Hollywood Brown, who's going to stretch the field. Perfect sense. Makes perfect sense for them. And I think that he's going to do well. Oh, man, what a day. What a day. I couldn't be happier. Could not be happier. I don't want to end this. I just want to live in this state of euphoria forever. I don't ever want it to go away. Goodness gracious. Oh, yeah, FanDuel posted one of the things I said yesterday that took off, and I didn't expect it to. I was just kind of voicing an opinion. So I'll get your guys' quick thoughts on this. the Ravens apparently aren't bringing back Odell Beckham. And I said, no disrespect to him at all. It's not his fault, but he's the most overrated player in the history of the sport. And then so many people started talking about it. And then FanDuel tweeted it, and people are giving their opinions. Let me just say this about Odell Beckham. First 3 years, really good. He hasn't been great in 8 years, hasn't had 50 catches in, I think, 5 years now, 4 years. And I'm just tired of every year there's like an Odell Beckham watch as if he's still like a great receiver. He's not. And that's the point I was attempting to make there. So if you have any thoughts on the Odell Beckham stuff, you can let me know. We'll have a little bit of a conversation about that on Twitter. If you have any other Kenny Pickett comments or questions, or Steelers comments or questions, or just NFL comments or questions, put those in the comments and I'll answer as many of them as come through. Till then, I'm just going to keep reveling in this because I said the night that Kenny Pickett was drafted, there's no pro potential there. And I was very much like, they're not going to draft Kenny Pickett. Like, it's just so cliche. The guy who goes to Pitt gets drafted by the Steelers. They're not going to do it. And then they did it. And everybody I'd ever met at the time just texted. I remember Ben Raven. Anybody who's followed me for a long time knows Ben Raven's one of my best friends in the industry. Covers the Detroit Lions. He was the first person to text me. He's like, oh, Godspeed, buddy. Good luck. And, you know, we saw some glimmers in the fourth quarter. You know, the games against the Raiders and the Ravens are the two that people come back to the most. But they wouldn't have had to come back in the fourth quarter had Kenny Pickett not played god-awful in both of those games, which seems to get lost to the test of time. And now he's gone, and I don't got to deal with the worst quarterback in the history of the franchise when you take into consideration like the expectations that were with him. I said it earlier, like there was guys like Kent Graham who weren't good, Bubby Brister, Mark Malone. Like there's a lot of bad quarterbacks between Bradshaw and Roethlisberger, but none of them came in with the expectations of being superstars. And Kenny Pickett, again, had to deal with all his fanboys, talk about his 13 touchdown passes over the past 2 years, talk about his like 170 yards passing per game, acting as if he was like this prodigy just because he went to Pitt, which, by the way, he was there for like 9 years. There's a reason for that, because he's not good. And now he's gone. Now I don't got to deal with it anymore. Pretty happy about it. 2 more questions came in. Keaton asked about Odell Beckham. With Odell being the subject, where does he end up? No clue. I couldn't tell you. Give me some time and I might be able to think of something. But right now, you know what? Actually, Jacksonville, maybe. As like the third receiver. If I can get him on a cheap deal, like 1 year, $8 million, something like that, that'd be fine. They need to bring in somebody else to be the predominant one, since Ridley is now not an option. He went to Tennessee, and they thought that they were going to get him back. But to have Gabe Davis, Odell Beckham, Christian Kirk's still there. They would need. I think that if you have Odell, now that I say that out loud, maybe that doesn't work. I don't know, man. Yeah, again, I don't see teams lining up for Odell Beckham Jr., and why should they? Like, again, he's fine. But for the past few years, he's been just a guy. He's a guy that everybody knows, and he's going to get more hype because of that. But he's just a guy. I don't see anybody really lining up. Maybe Tampa Bay, team over my shoulder right there. They could use a little bit of depth at receiver. Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, put Odell in the slot. Sure, why not? I don't think Buffalo. Just doesn't really make sense to me. They decided Curtis Samuel. They have Khalil Shakir. They got Stephon Diggs. They need another outside guy who can separate. I just don't think that Odell makes sense for them. Really, there's not a lot of like contending teams that make a ton of sense to me. I think it'll be kind of a middle of the pack team who needs a receiver. Give him a 1 year deal. That's what he's going to be living off of for the rest of his career is 1 year deals. That's what he got last year, and he had 37 catches. So I really don't know. That's kind of my analysis on that. Mike, do you think when Callahan watches Bengals get beat by Mason, it was Callahan that wanted Mason on his new? Oh, that makes sense. Yeah, I didn't really think about that. Yeah, I think that's a good observation. Yeah, watching Mason Rudolph just torch his defense last year. Yeah, I could see that being a thing where, you know, he was in Cincinnati. He saw what Mason Rudolph did in his first start and said, hey, you know, that could be a quality backup that I have. And if need be, I can hand him the keys and be like, hey, get us through a few games. Yeah, I think that makes perfect sense as to why Brian Callahan would want to bring in Mason Rudolph. Yeah, that's a good observation. And again, I wish that the Steelers could have found a way to bring back Mason Rudolph. But for him, I think he just wanted a fresh start. Fair enough. He'd been there for a long time, since 2017, and had been second string, third string the entirety of his time there. In 2019, I think he appeared in 10 games, started 8, played fine. He played competent backup quarterback football and helped the Steelers get to an 8-8 record and on the brink of a playoff berth that year. So I wish nothing but the best, for Mason Rudolph. The one game that really exemplifies his Rocky relationship up until last year, because at the end, people really just rallied around him. But up until last year, the preseason opener in 2022, I was there against Seattle. And Rudolph came in after Trubisky. So he was the second quarterback that came in, and everybody just booed him, just booed the hell out of him because he wasn't Kenny Pickett. And then on like the second play that he was in, he throws a dot to George Pickens in the back of the end zone. That pretty much exemplifies his tenure in Pittsburgh, is that too many fans gave him a lot of shit for no reason. He was a fine backup while he was there. I wish him nothing but the best. Big Mason Rudolph guy here. David asked, what about Vrabel to the Browns? Yeah, that's a big one. I really thought that Vrabel would just kind of take a year off, just chill, watch games, and be, the top head coaching candidate in 2025. I think it's going to be very similar to what Brian Flores did with Pittsburgh, except it's going to lead to a head coaching job next year rather than where Flores went to a senior defensive assistant and he was a linebackers coach with the Steelers to then getting the defensive coordinator job with Minnesota. I think that we're going to see Vrabel just do a year of being, basically like the head assistant in Cleveland. And then next year, maybe go into the Giants, because I think that Brian Dable's hanging on by a thread. Whatever teams are going to be in the running for a head coach next year, Vrabel is going to be the top name that they're all trying to get. Maybe Ben Johnson, depending on if he ends up ever taking a head coaching job, because the past 2 off seasons, it seemed like he was destined to be a head coach, and then he just decided to stay in Detroit. But even if Ben Johnson does decide, okay, I am going to take a coaching job this year, I think that Vrabel's still going to be that top guy just because he's got the proven track record that comes with him. But yeah, I think it's a great hire by the Browns. One of the better head coaches over the past, 5 to 7 years is Vrabel. So good hire for him. Hopefully that doesn't put any, like hot water in Kevin Stefanski, because he did tremendous last year getting them through, to the playoffs using a boatload of different quarterbacks. So again, I think it's going to be very similar to what the Steelers did with Brian Flores. Have him on the staff for a year. He gets a better job after that year. I just think that with Vrabel, it'll be going from assistant to head coach rather than assistant to defensive coordinator. And he might take a DC job. I don't know. But I came into this year saying he's not going to take an assistant job, and here we are now. He's, a consultant, assistant, whatever you want to call it, for Cleveland. So I don't know. Maybe he would take a coordinator job, but I think that he would be the top candidate for all the teams that are going to need head coaches going into 2025. But I do like the hire. Makes perfect sense for them. I don't know how much else I really have to. Hold on. There's questions happening right now below me. Maybe not. We'll talk about that later. Let's see. Something about Stephon Diggs. I don't think Stephon Diggs is going anywhere, guys. We've done this for the past 3 off seasons. I don't think he's going anywhere. Stephon Diggs is the king of cryptic tweets. I would bet substantial money he's not leaving Buffalo. Not leaving Buffalo. I would be very shocked. I could be wrong. Not saying that he's not saying it's impossible, but I don't think he's going anywhere. I think that Stephon Diggs is constantly in a state of just wanting to be petty and wanting people to talk about him. That's my opinion. I don't think he's going anywhere. It wouldn't make sense for the Bills either. Because even though he lost a little bit of a step he's still easily the best receiver on that roster, and they need a number one receiver. Like I said, they just signed Curtis Samuel. They have Khalil Shakir. They have Dalton Kincaid. Brought back Ty Johnson to put behind James Cook in the backfield. Like, they got guys, but they need that game breaker. And I think that we'll see them either try to make a trade for somebody, move up in the draft to try to get somebody, whether that be like Malik Neighbors or Rome Odunze, depending on what order they go. And they got to do something because they need pass catchers. And they need another outside threat that isn't Stephon Diggs, because he's not really separating at the second level anymore. So I would assume that they get aggressive and try to get another receiver. But they've been somewhat quiet on getting guys outside of the organization so far. So we'll see. But I don't think Stephon Diggs is going anywhere. But Kenny Pickett did. I'm so happy about it. Now, look, I don't want to be happy about it. I would love nothing more if Kenny Pickett balled out the last 2 years and the Steelers had their franchise quarterback. I just knew going in that he wasn't that guy. And I said it the day he got drafted until the day he was finally traded. Sometimes maybe too much. That's a criticism I've received. And maybe they're right. Maybe I harped on it too much. But guess who ended up being right? And yes, I am being extremely petty. And yes, I am taking a victory lap. Because I've had to deal with this annoying shit for the past 2 years of my life. Every time I got to talk about the Steelers, I got to talk about Kenny effing Pickett. And now he's gone. And now I'm very happy about it. And Russell Wilson had a very nice introductory press conference today, as did Patrick Queen, as did Deshaun Elliott. I like what Omar Khan's doing. I think they recognize that this isn't going to be a one-year thing. This is something that's going to take, some time. But the fact that they were willing to make, quote unquote, not Steelers moves. Russell Wilson wasn't a Steelers move. What would have been a Steelers move is rolling forward with Kenny Pickett and signing like Ryan Tannehill or Jacoby Brissett. They signed Russell Wilson. I would have liked to see them get Kirk Cousins. I'm still a little bit upset about it. But they signed Russell Wilson. They signed Patrick Queen from the division rival Ravens. Say that 3 times fast. They bring in Deshaun Elliott, safety from the Miami Dolphins, which, by the way, that move, I think, is going to fly under the radar for Steelers fans because Deshaun Elliott, a very good run defending safety. Patrick Queen, a very good coverage linebacker. These moves say that they want Minkah Fitzpatrick to not have to wear so many hats on the defense, put him back in center field, let him patrol, and get a bunch of interceptions again. If they need a safety to come up and help with run support, Deshaun Elliott. They need somebody to patrol the middle of the field, Patrick Queen. Minkah, stay back there, watch the quarterback's eyes, get some interceptions. So that's why they traded for him in 2019, and he more than paid off that trade. 3-time All-Pro. Most All-Pros by a safety in that span since he's been traded for. So I think that these moves also say, hey, Minkah, we know what you're great at. We know we've put a lot on your plate the past couple seasons. We're going to bring in guys that specialize in different things. That way you can do what you do best, which is sit back there, watch the quarterback, anticipate where he's going to go, intercept passes, get us the ball back. So I like these moves a lot. Is this Najee Harris's last year with the Steelers? That's a good question. Right now, I would say no. I think they'll pick up his option. And even if they don't, I think that they really like him. And look, when we talk about production from a running back standpoint, I know that we talk about Najee has had 3,000-yard seasons, and that's great. But it's very different now than what it was back then. And getting 1,000 yards as a running back today, like, it's not, I don't want to say it's not impressive, but like, you got to average like 60 yards a game to get 1,000 yards this year, which isn't, it's not exactly something to write home about. And he got a 17-game season, and he's only averaging, in his rookie year, he averaged less than 4 yards a carry. The only reason that he got 1,000 yards is because they just kept feeding him, and he would get like 60 yards a game, and he barely got over the threshold. Again, I'm not trying to take anything away from Najee Harris. I don't think he's a great running back. I think he's an above-average running back. He's probably somewhere between like the 11th and 13th best running back in the league. I think he'll be there in 2025 with Jaylen Warren behind him, especially with the way that Arthur Smith likes to run this offense. I could see a big year for Najee Harris. I think it could be a nice year, and I think that he'll be back in 2025. Are you happy with Dante Jackson on the other side of Joey Porter Jr.? We'll see. I don't think they're going to be done bringing in corners. I think they'll still draft one early. It's going to be similar to last year if they draft a guy early on, where fans are going to want that guy to play opposite of Joey Porter Jr. and they're going to be very patient with it because Joey Porter Jr. didn't start until week 7 last year. They were patient with it, probably a little bit too patient with him. Because Levi Wallace wasn't good and Patrick Peterson wasn't good until he switched to safety. So with Dante Jackson, he's got very good speed, which is something that the Steelers emphasized this offseason very clearly, is that they needed more speed on the defensive side of the ball, especially in the secondary, because Levi Wallace is slow, Patrick Peterson was slow, Dante Jackson's fast. So I think he'll be better than Levi Wallace was. I think he'll be better than what Patrick Peterson was at cornerback. So if he's better than both of those guys, which isn't the highest of bars, but as long as he's a suitable number 2, I'm cool with it. But I still think that they'll draft another corner early. But we'll see. I don't hate the trade. By the way, and I wrote about this in my mailbag today, I'm very much in the minority of people who were fine with the Diontae Johnson trade, because the NFL is clearly telling us that they're not going to give up high draft capital for veterans. They'd rather just draft their own guys. Like Jerry Jeudy went for 2 day 3 picks. Diontae Johnson went for a day 3 and a player. Like, okay. They weren't going to extend him anyway. They weren't going to re-sign him. You might as well get something for him. And like, if we're being really honest with ourselves here, they weren't going to win the Super Bowl with or without Diontae Johnson. Get some compensation for him. So I'm fine with the trade. I wasn't up in arms about it. Once the reports came out that they were open to trading him, I just pretty much assumed he was gone, because they wouldn't let that out unless they were ready to just move on from him. So I'm cool with it. Yeah, nothing bad to say about it. I'll wait to let it play out on the field, but I don't think Dante Jackson can be any worse than what we saw from Levi Wallace or Patrick Peterson last year. So I'm cautiously optimistic about it, but I still think that they'll draft a guy relatively early to eventually put behind him. And look, they still got guys like Darius Rush, who they traded for, or they signed last year as a free agent. Corey Trice, who they drafted in the 7th round last year, who a lot of people were really excited about. He tore his ACL in camp. We'll see how he looks in OTAs and training camp this year. But they still got other guys on the roster, but it's a young unit. So we'll see. But I'm cautiously optimistic about it. I'm excited to see these quarterbacks, whoever they'll be in camp. Again, if I had to pick, it would be Russell Wilson, Josh Dobbs, and then if they draft a guy, which I think they will, somebody of that caliber. So it could be, again, depends on how the board falls. God forbid it's like Bo Nix. I really don't want that. Like Kenny Pickett and Bo Nix are like the Spider-Man meme where they're just pointing at each other. They're the same player. That would be a bad idea. Penix, I think, is just, this will come off as a very lazy comp. But I talked to a player personnel member while I was in Mobile at the Senior Bowl, and he said that he's just Tua with a bigger arm. And again, that'll come off as a lazy comp because they're both left-handed and whatnot, but both aren't good under pressure. Both can't really move around a ton. Penix has a long injury history with ACL tears and whatnot, so he can't really move around a ton. I don't think that Penix is going to be good. I think that his ceiling is just being a serviceable middle-of-the-pack starter. But I don't think that he's going to be anything special. I really don't think Bo Nix is going to be good at all. And other guys like, they're not going to be, obviously not going to take Caleb Williams, Drake May, McCarthy, who's going to go higher than he should. Jaden Daniels are not going to be in range to take those guys. So it's going to be someone like a Spencer Rattler or Michael Pratt if they do take a quarterback in the middle of the draft. I don't think it's going to be super early. I think it'll be a middle, like a 4th round guy. And I think the best case scenario for them is that guy just balls out in camp. They realize that they have a guy. And if Russell Wilson struggles, they just got to toss that guy in and be like, all right, well, might as well see what you can do. We drafted you. We'll see if you can play. And then if he plays well, then, hey, there's your 2025 starter. Well, I guess best case scenario is that Russell Wilson plays really well and like looks something like Seattle Russell Wilson, where something's just unlocked and he remembers how to play. He was better in 2023 than he was in 2022, and I think a lot of that was just schematically. The Broncos were better. They didn't have Nathaniel Hackett. But he wasn't a fit for a Sean Payton offense that just requires, a 3-step drop back and a quick release. Russ is going to run around a little bit. Russ is going to try to extend the play and create. And if he has the freedom to do that, then I think that we could see, some good from Russell Wilson. If Russell Wilson is like the 18th, between like the 16th and 18th best quarterback in the NFL, and the defense plays the way that they did last year, Steelers can win 10 games. And they might, maybe, best case scenario, maybe they can steal a win in the wild card round. I don't think they go further than that, but that's better than what the ceiling was last year. So that's kind of my overall look at this, is if Russell can look a little bit better than what he did last year, or even in the same neighborhood as what he was last year, because Russell Wilson last year, I did quarterback rankings every week. He was routinely, 18, 17, 20, somewhere in that range. If he's that, cool. I don't have expectations of Russell Wilson being like a top 12 quarterback. I just don't have that. But if he can be 17 to 20, neat. That's fine. As long as, if everything else lives up to its potential on the roster, and they get, one more receiver in there on the outside and, draft a guy to put in the slot or sign somebody to put in the slot, everything else on defense lives up to its potential, they can win 10 games. Hell, they won 10 games last year with the worst quarterback playing football. Could they surprise people and go like 11-6? Maybe. Do I think that they'll go far in the playoffs? No. Because, again, eventually you got to go through Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen and Joe Burrow and Trevor Lawrence and CJ Stroud. Now you got a lot of good quarterbacks. You got a lot of good teams. And we saw it this past January against Buffalo. Sometimes, if you have the quarterback, you're going to win. Sometimes it's just, okay, Mason Rudolph or Josh Allen. Yeah, Josh Allen's going to win that. Oh, Patrick Mahomes against Tua. Yeah, Mahomes is going to win that. That defense, yeah, good luck. So there's a clear ceiling on what they're going to do, but I applaud the fact that they're looking at this and be like, okay, everybody else has all these other contenders have a star quarterback. We'll get Russ, who could be a middle of the pack guy, and we're just going to build a defense that's going to beat the piss out of you for 60 minutes. We'll have TJ Watt. We'll have Alex Highsmith. We got Cam Hayward who can still play. We'll go sign Patrick Queen. We got Minka Fitzpatrick. We got Joey Porter Jr. We'll bring in Deshaun Elliott. They ain't done too. So I think that they're trying to, I talked about it with Dave Damashek the other day. I think they're just kind of starting to zag when everybody else is zigging. And I'm going to be cautiously hopeful about it all. But yes, the big news of the day, and I can kind of wrap this up now because there's still 300 of you watching this for some reason. Thank you for joining me in this. Kenny Pickett is no longer a Pittsburgh Steeler. Just look at this. He's a Philadelphia Eagle. He's going to be wearing that Kelly green on the sidelines, looking real good, backing up Jalen Hurts. He's going to wear that jersey like twice a year, no longer wearing the Steelers uniform. And again, this all stems from the great people at Steelers Now. My boy Derek Bell reporting back in January when the Steelers faced the Seattle Seahawks that Kenny Pickett refused to dress to back up Mason Rudolph. And everybody called him crazy. Everybody said, nope, that didn't happen. Why would he do that? And then it's confirmed today. Yep, he did it. He did it. Confirmed by Jerry Dulac of the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette that, yes, indeed, Kenny Pickett refused to dress against Seattle. And then he wasn't happy that the Steelers signed Russell Wilson, which, by the way, Russell pointed out in his introductory press conference that he texted Kenny and was like, all right, I'm ready for this competition, which, by the way, that's so Russell Wilson. It's like, all right, man, ready for this competition. We're going to make each other better. Let's ride, or whatever he said. I don't know. But I do appreciate that from Russell Wilson, and then Kenny just being pissed off, so they trade him. That's so funny to me. And you know what? I'm so happy. And my boy, oh, by the way, if Farball's watching. Nick Farball, the great Nick Farball over at Steelers Now as well, just shot me a text. I know you're partying. You're damn right I'm partying, buddy. I'm very happy. I'm very happy. And I'm very happy that 300 of you are still sitting here watching us. That makes me very happy. That makes me very happy too. So thanks for tuning in and watching this with me, or being a part of this with me. Means a lot. So I do appreciate it. Before I get out of here, if anybody else does have any other questions, you can drop them in the comments and I'll get to them before getting out of here. But yeah, the big news of the day: Kenny Pickett traded away from the Pittsburgh Steelers and out of my life forever to the Philadelphia Eagles. And then, like I said, if that's it, I'm just going to take a minute to plug stuff. Please subscribe to the YouTube if you're watching on YouTube. If you're watching on Twitter, I would appreciate if you subscribe to the YouTube. Stream every episode of the Pump Fake. Do some, especially in the off season, we'll do some watch the tape stuff. So that'll be coming. Yeah, other videos as well, other opinion videos on the YouTube. So if you want to subscribe to that, that would be cool. And then follow my written work. There will be a post coming out on USA Today about Justin Herbert and why the Chargers just hate him, apparently. So I'll be actually writing that. I was writing that as the trade happened. So that should be coming out, if not today, first thing tomorrow morning. Behind the Steel Curtain, all the Steelers coverage Behind the Steel Curtain, the Steelers site for SB Nation that myself and Kate Magic run. So please go and read all the stuff over there. Our staff has been working really hard this offseason so far to bring all the best Steelers coverage that we possibly can. So please go read that. All the USA Today stuff. Subscribe to the YouTube. Follow me on Twitter at JBaileyNFL, where I will continue taking my victory lap today. And I'm so happy. Could not be happier. Thank you all so much for taking this victory lap with me today on the stream. And we'll talk soon. This has been an emergency stream, and we'll be back with the Pump Fake next week to talk about NFL free agency and all that fun stuff going forward. So appreciate y'all for tuning in. I'll see you soon.